All right, so NCIS Season 1, Episode 4. So we're halfway through the season. So this was a very sweet, touching episode considering there was a murder. But anyway, so it starts off with a tour group at the Rocks, which is a historical neighborhood. And we see a woman on the phone, and then it looks like she left. So I honestly thought that she was going to have something to do with this mess that was about to happen. But no, it had nothing to do with that. And we saw this other couple, a same-sex couple, and again, I thought that they would be interviewed or that there would be something more to the fact that they actually had a speaking role. But again, no. They were just there. So they're on the tour, and then there was a nod. Then the only attraction, I guess you could say, they showed was a nod to Sweeney Todd. In that there was somebody who took murder victims and turned them into meat pots. So, yeah, I think the original Sweeney Todd was in England, but yeah, it's still a nod to Sweeney Todd. So, as soon as he mentions that, down goes a person. Two men go in, and suddenly he ends up impaled on the spiked fence below. And one of the guys is like, "Oh wow, that looks so realistic," and the other, and his, I don't know, boyfriend, husband, said, "No, I think that's real." And that look of pure terror on everybody's face. And so then we cut to NCIS investigating. Now, you see that the head of the tour group is still there, but you don't see anybody else. And I'm just like, where did everybody go? They literally all saw what he saw. Why are they not being interviewed? So, I mean, they literally didn't see anything different. So, anyway. They find out who he is. They find out how he died, which is he fell from the window. And everybody confirms that, oh yeah, you would land there. Okay. So they go back, and he's not wearing shoes. You see his feet being very, very green, and Rosie correctly concludes that they're grass stains. And he figures out what lawn type, or actually Blue figures out later what type of lawn was used he was cutting. So they find out who he is. They go to his dorm, I guess, and they find a bunch of Navy crosses. So they go to the address on the card, and they meet with this Ammon Standish. He's part of some museum. I don't know if it's just for Vietnam but Mackie is mesmerized by this one exhibit that involves a chopper. So they speak with him, and he gives them the article that this ISBN number points to, and it's on microfiche. Oh yes, microfiche. The research tool which will leave you cross-eyed. Anyway, so actually it was more microfilm than microfiche, but either way, those are not fun to look at. And yes, I am old enough to have used them. So, they find this article of Frank. They had already found out that he deserted, and this was in 1971. So they find this article, and it's about Frank the war hero. And they find out that he did 2 tours, and how he helped his buddies. So they go back, and Dee is creating this love story for them. Dee is such a romantic. He's such a tender-hearted romantic. So he's coming up with this love story, and as Evie is eating his lunch, she's just basically rolling her eyes at this idea of true love and how this was his girl and blah, blah, blah. And, she believes in the, he was 20 at the time, so he had a girl in every port type thing. She believes that myth. So, at least I think it's a myth. I'm pretty sure not everybody does that. I'm sure there's some. But anyway. So, she's doing the opposite of what people are told boys do when they like a girl. And this is when they're younger. Some never stop, but mostly it's usually when they're younger, is that they're cruel to the girls that they like. She seems to be giving off those vibes now, big time, and it's bothering the heck out of me because it's no less toxic and no less ew. Or maybe she's doing it on purpose. Maybe she does like him and she's being cruel because she's hoping he'll do something to make her not like him anymore in that way. Who knows? Either way, me no likey. So, they decide to go visit May and ask her about Frank. And she tries to tell them that, it didn't last. Oh, when did he leave? Like 5 minutes after this photo was taken. And Dee starts quoting her love letters and says that this was written months after this photo was taken. You're lying. And she's like, well, okay, fine, but, still, it didn't last. And then he asked her about the news, and she knew about the case in question, and she said, oh, Eddie reminds me of Frank, I guess. And it's like, well, we never released the name, so they knew that something was up. I don't know why she didn't just, tell a half-truth and just say that Eddie was the guy who was mowing her lawn. I mean, that would have been fine. And then, the fact that Frank is hiding in the house wouldn't have gone on their radar. But he was, and they found him. cowering in a closet with holding a cane. And so they arrest him. And just like last episode, where the guys were way too eager to cop to a drug charge, and Dempsey is like, no. So they question him, and he's way too eager to say that he killed Eddie. First, he said how he did it. He went along with the story that Eddie was extorting him. Then he slightly changed his story when they came up with a new theory, and he just agreed to whatever they said. I mean, it's like, and Mackie is believing him. And she believes him because he deserted. And obviously that's the biggest sin imaginable, to desert your post. And because of that, it colors everything she thinks about him. So the fact that he copped to it, they took his old service pistol, and shot Eddie. Just the fact that he kept changing his story to fit whatever narrative they were admitting to. It's like, that should have told you that he's lying. Plus, he was way too quick, considering he was hiding. He was way too quick to cop to the murder charge. So, but Dempsey doesn't believe him. I mean, if nothing else, he saw the way he was drinking water. It wasn't just that he was holding two hands, and his hands were shaky, but that he has arthritis. So how the hell could he hold a Colt 45? Let alone shoot the damn thing. But Mackie is just totally caught up in the fact that he's a deserter, so obviously, he's the worst kind of human being, so he must be a murderer too. That was really bugging me so bad that Mackie was acting this way. But, Dempsey was talking to Evie and to Dee to get more information about Baker. So they were finding out about Eddie. And then they talked to Rosie. He mentioned what his last meal was. He, of course, had the contents on what looked like a scale, which is like, ew. I mean, considering this is supposed to be contents of his stomach, it actually didn't look too bad. I was surprised. But Evie didn't think so. So they go to the bar. And who do they find there? The same dude who runs the tours. And it's like, is this guy everywhere? And, oh boy, is he everywhere. But anyway, so he tells them that he saw two guys. And they showed him Eddie Baker. Eddie Baker, and then they showed him the old man, Frank. And suddenly comes up that those were not the two he saw. He saw Eddie or Frank with another man. It wasn't Eddie. And it's just like, wait, you just said yes. This is what you get for talking to someone who's drunk. He is so annoying. And even Evie was getting annoyed with him. I'm surprised that beer didn't end up his ass or something. Or that glass down his throat, because Evie was getting very annoyed with him. And, so they go back, And they're like, wait, what other guy? So now they have to figure out who this mystery guy is. So they talk to Frank again. And again, Frank doesn't want to talk. He especially doesn't want to talk to JD. And JD's like, yeah, I get it. He doesn't want to talk to me because I never served. And my response is, how does he know that? Was it written on JD's forehead? Did he say that he's just a cop, he never served? How does he know that he never served? But JD leaves, but he leaves a crack open. So they obviously don't have the technology to actually be able to, I don't know, have an intercom system so you can hear what's going on. I have no idea. But he left the door a crack. And Frank, Mackie is trying to speak to him as two people who served their country. Him in the Navy, her as a Marine. And he was like, oh, you don't know what I've been through. You've never done this. You've never done that. And so then she starts telling him about a situation that she was a part of. And then she closes the door. So I'm going to say that this is what the court-martial was about. She didn't get to that. She didn't mention she was almost court-martialed for it. But she did tell a story, and she closed the door so JD wouldn't hear. And that's when Dee and Evie arrived. So I have no idea, was this when they were talking with May again? I don't know. Because that's when they found out, I guess that's when they found out that Eddie was mowing their lawn, that he just wanted to return his medal. That's why he had all these Navy crosses. He was repatriating them. He was giving them back to who it belongs to. Whereas Frank was like, I do not want to remember this time. So she tells him the story about how 3 of her company went AWOL, and it's possible that they obviously didn't intend to cross enemy lines, but they did. And Mackie went against orders and went to rescue these 3 men. So, but in the end, they did manage to rescue them, but the 2 men that she went with ended up dying. And I'm assuming that was what led to the court-martial. And she just looked and said, we're not that different. And so he started telling her about what happened. And it sounds like he was going to kill the person who was extorting him. But Eddie got in the way. He saw that he couldn't do it along with the extorter. And so Eddie was going to try to wrestle the gun from him. So technically Frank did kill him, but it was an accident. It's how I understood it. So he knew that, either way, he's got to pay for what he did. Whether it's the desertion or the manslaughter, he's got to pay. So now we're getting close to the part that was bothering me about this show, about this episode. So he also didn't want to say, because he didn't want to put May in danger. Based on what we saw later, May could take care of herself very well, thank you. But so Mackie's trying to figure out what to do. And she is telling Dee. Dee is like, there's got to be a way to get him out of this. I mean, it's been 50 years. He shouldn't be going to get punished for something 50 years ago. Even though he earlier said in the episode, matter of factly, that deserters get punished no matter how long it's been. And, but that was probably before they knew that he was a war hero. And that it was more complicated than just a deserter. I'm assuming that's why he changed his tune. So, he's trying to convince Maggie. He goes, in my time at law school, I learned that, there's always a loophole. Now, does that mean he was a jag, or did he not complete law school? I was not sure whether, based on how he said his time at law school, I don't think he completed it. But it could be that he did and he's just not practicing lawyer, because I had a coworker who went to law school, and yeah, that just sucks the life out of you. she totally, I don't think she completed, or no, she completed law school, she just never practiced. So I don't know. But she comes, it seems like she has a light bulb moment. She goes to get Frank, and she's pretending she's on the phone with somebody, with whomever is in charge of taking him back. And so she stops at Rosie's station, so Frank could see Eddie, just so he could say his last goodbyes or something. And Frank is like, I know what you're doing, and it's not gonna work. And then he explains about what happened to his Navy Cross. That first she got him to talk by saying, you know, why did you let Eddie cut grass barefoot? That's dangerous. And that just broke Frank. He just started laughing, and you could see tears in his eyes. And that's when he started talking about his Navy Cross, and that May was going to bequeath it to the Navy Museum, to the Naval Museum. And that was all Maggie needed. That was obviously him telling her, without actually telling her, who the extorter is. And it was that Armin Standish, which, this is where it got annoying, because nowhere did they explain why he was doing the extorting. I mean, it was just, what is going on? So they rush to find him. And they figure out where this was going to take place, and as it so happens, it was going to take place where Eddie died. And they see May talking with Armin. They found out that he took his passport, and that he had three potential countries that don't have extradition treaties with Australia. And so they all managed to get there. This time he asked for $40,000, and May is going to give him the money, or so he thought. So everybody thought. No, she has a gun, and she's going to kill him. Which On the one hand, no, that's not how you deal with problems, especially since you have NCIS literally behind you who can handle it. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, I agree with her. I totally agree with her. He totally deserves that. But, justice. So it's actually more of a justice to make him suffer in a jail cell than it is if he's dead. Though, like I said, I don't blame her for thinking that at all. I really don't. So Dee convinces her. He said, "We can help both Frank and you, and you don't have to worry about this." And she's like, how immediately I thought, because earlier she said they didn't get married because too much paperwork. I knew that was going to be the solution, getting married. And who's officiating? That same doofus, that same drunk doofus, who also was the tour guide, even though he doesn't have insurance and he doesn't have a license. And my question is, are you sure that he is truly an officiant? I mean, how do we know that this guy can actually marry them? I mean, is this going to be legal? But, so, the only people who are there are the NCIS people. So, and we also found out, thanks to him, that Dee is from Inglewood, California. Because he says he's so good at guessing accents. And he tried to guess Dee's. And he said Montreal, Canada. Now, that is West Coast. And if you listen to some Canadians, they have a similar accent to what I have. Or what I hear in the Northwoods, which is northern Wisconsin. Because it's in the same general area, the same general region. So, it makes sense that he would put those together. So, I wouldn't say he's completely wrong about that. When he said that he was close, I think he was. But, so, they get married, they're having a party, and he tries to guess Blue's accent, and he thought New Zealand, and she's like, no. But she didn't say where she's from. And then, first off, Mackie and JD are off on their own. Well, Dee and Evie are also off on their own. Evie's taking pictures. And Evie, the one who seemed to poo-poo romance, Dee actually asked her if she was crying during the service. She's like, no. Now, I poo-poo romance, but that's because I don't want it for myself. Other people, oh yeah, people would think I'm a total romantic because I do cry at some romance. Not all. Most of it really annoys me, but, I could see myself crying for certain romantic gestures. However, so Mackie and JD are talking, and JD wants to know about what happened between her and Frank when she closed the door so he couldn't hear a damn word. Now, JD is no dummy. I'm pretty sure he heard from Evie about the court-martial thing. So I'm pretty sure he's aware that that's probably why she closed the door, is because she was going to tell Frank about the incident that led to the almost court-martial. So he asked her about that, and she's like, I would rather hear about your time as a Sea Scout. Because he tried to, funnily, when she was saying how you don't know what it's like to serve, he mentioned Sea Scouts. Which went over like a lead balloon at the time, but I assume Sea Scouts is the Australian version of Boy Scouts. That's what I'm assuming. So, so that didn't happen because he offered her a drink. He went to get a refill, and as he was doing that, the doofus was trying to guess accents, and he was failing the entire episode except with JD. He said, "Am I hearing a Wagga Wagga twang? Are you from Gumly Gumly?" And everybody's like, "Wait a minute, he got it." Which makes me wonder if A, he's been there, so he recognizes it, or somebody told him already where JD is from, and so he was just basically, freaking people out, but he already knew. But anyway, so that's how the episode ends, and let me see if I'm missing anything. I think I pretty much covered everything. In real time and in NCIS world, this was the first episode after Blue became a member of the team, because she said, "Hello, colleagues," and then she saw the body on the table and she's like, "Okay, yeah, So we know that now. I'm assuming that this would be week 4. Because it's episode 4. Let's see if I'm missing anything else. I think I've covered everything. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video.